Oh my god, where have I been? Okay, so here's the story. 2 days after my last video, a group of men showed up at my door wearing black suits. I opened the door because I thought they were delegates from the Norwegian Nobel Committee, here to give me my Nobel Peace Prize for my YouTube videos that contributed to the revolt in Egypt. It quickly became apparent that I was right. They put a black hood over my face, picked me up, and put me in a car. I didn't say anything because I just figured it was how the Scandinavians did things and I didn't want to offend them. They took off the hood after a couple of days and everything was dark except for a chair that had a spotlight on it right in front of me. In that chair sat former Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner. I said, "I didn't know you were Norwegian." He said, "What?" And I said, "It's pretty dark. In the future, you should present the prize when Norway isn't in its 6 months of darkness." Then he said, "Enough screwing around, kid." And I said, "I'm 22. And then he said, "Just shut up and listen." And I said, "Okay, but I do have a speech prepared for when you've introduced me and everything." At this point, he got up and slapped me across the face. I slapped him back because I was pretty sure that was a Norwegian greeting, and at that point he had me tied up. I was really starting to get confused about Norwegian customs. After this, he just started talking. It seemed irrelevant, but it could have been in an ancient Viking language that just sounded like English. I zoned out until it was time for my speech, but occasionally a line in his introduction would register.
"You think you can just make fun of me? Do you know who I am? Last time you ever disrespect me, your balls in a river and bury your feet in a field. Going to be president one day. Are you even listening? Are you even listening?"
I had accidentally missed my cue for my speech, so I quickly stood up and looked for where the TV camera was. This was awkward because I was tied to the chair. I couldn't find where the camera was, so I turned and faced the darkness because that's the same direction that Anthony Weiner was facing. It seemed as good a guess as any. I then gave one of the greatest speeches in the history of humanity. Here it is. Firstly, I would like to thank Mr. Fallis for the warm introduction. It was long and hard to understand at times, but luckily he came early so he could find the time to pull it off. I would also like to thank the Norwegian Nobel Committee for honoring the work I did to overthrow the oppressive Egyptian regime. Ladies and gentlemen, for over 30,000 years the Egyptian people have suffered under the rule of violent pharaohs. Under this rule, women were not allowed to drink water, and men could not go ice fishing or eat any food that had a vowel in its spelling. Well, I am here to tell you that the tyrannical rule is over. The last pharaoh has fallen, and the Egyptian people are now able to build a country based on the principles of oligarchy. How did the Egyptian liberation come about, you may ask? The answer is simple: me. Some will argue that Facebook is equally deserving of the Nobel Peace Prize, but to this I say nay, for Facebook is but a book of faces. I am a man of action. Action Man. As Action Man, I flew into the minds of the Egyptians through broadband connection. My YouTube videos taught them of a world where you could openly criticize your leader for being a secret Muslim, where you could idolize the monarchy of Great Britain, and where you could openly rejoice in the streets after having shot Osama bin Laden in the face. The Egyptians took this message and said, "We want this too," and so a revolution was born. I sowed the seeds of rebellion, and the Egyptian people reaped freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to leave you with these final words. This is the day the world declared, "We will not go quietly into the night. We will not give in without a fight. We're going to live on. We are going to survive. Today we celebrate our Independence Day. I woke up some time after this speech with a big bump on the back of my head. The man in the room next to me said that Anthony Weiner did it. All I could think was that I hope he used the club and that he didn't use his. It was a bit of a culture shock to see that Norway's hotel rooms looked a lot like prison cells do here in Canada. Anthony Weiner came by to talk to me again. I asked him where my prize was and he just stared at me. And then I said, I think I deserve it. He walked away and that was the last time I really saw him. That's because that night one of my obsessed subscribers showed up with some keys to let me out. They lifted me up on their back and brought me to an airport where I was taken back to Canada in a cargo box of rice. Did you know that the flight between Norway and Canada is only about 2 hours? Anyways, I'm back from my Nobel Prize ceremony, and I hope everyone got to see my speech on TV. I'm sorry for my long absence, but the Scandinavians have weird ways of doing things. I'll be reporting the news quite soon, so stay tuned.
I'm not as smart as I'd like to think, but I'm young, and it's over.